Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, we are getting very deep into the process and actually almost on the home stretch here, following along with How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler and Charles Van Doren. And this is an extended example of following all of the steps in Adler's analytical reading. The book that I've chosen for my analytical reading project is Hold On, You Lost Me by Bernice McCarthy and Janine O'Neill Blackwell. This book is a very handy how-to book, and we are on step 6, where the job is to determine the propositions of the author. And last time I had to go back to the Adler book and read chapter 13, because now where you look for the propositions depends in part on what kind of book you're reading. And this book that I'm reading is a very practical book. It's a how-to book. And because of that, I needed to follow a different set of guidelines, which we went over yesterday. In particular, to find the propositions of a how-to book, you have to look at the action steps that the author lays out for you, the rules that he lays down that you have to follow. For example, the Adler book itself is a practical book, and we're on step 6, and Adler says, do this is what you must do. And similarly, this book also has its action steps that I'm supposed to do, and we're tracking those with this episode. So I'll see you over in the down-facing camera. Okay, so here we are with our familiar bib cards on a ring, working with How to Read a Book. We've been through all of these steps, and now we're down to our final 3, but in particular, we're focusing on step 6. Identify the propositions, the claims, what is to be proved. When you're working with a how-to book, you can end up scratching your head saying, what? I don't see anything here that's to be proved. And that's why I had to go to chapter 13 in Adler's book, How to Read a Practical Book. And there I learned that when I'm reading those practical books, which give you a set of rules to follow to achieve the desired result, well, those propositions are the rules that you've been given to follow. So now I need to go through, identify the propositions, which are the rules that I'm supposed to follow. Well, early in the book, I encountered 2 rules that I was being asked to follow. One was to know the kinds of questions that each type of learner tends to ask. And those questions define the 4 quadrants of the learning cycle. The questions why, what, how, and what if. Then I was advised to use the format model, and in particular, its learning cycle, as the design method for training. Well, it turns out that those steps in the learning cycle, 8 steps across 4 stages, is the bulk of those rules that I'm being asked to follow. And when I expanded it a bit, I could take each of these stages and each of these steps and come up with a rule that fit each and every one of them. So these were tick off my 8 steps, 8 different rules that I needed to follow in designing my lesson plan. But even with that, it wasn't all of the rules I was asked to follow. In the learning outcomes, I was asked to clearly define the desired outcomes. And in chapter 7, I was given guidelines for doing the evaluation. The interesting here in the evaluation, in the Kirkpatrick model, there were 4 levels of evaluation. The first one, we were advised that you should always include, at a minimum, this level of evaluation. It's the user reaction. What did the user think of the training? At the level 2, with the pre and post tests, they're saying ideally you should include that. But there was no attempt to set down a rule to do these level 3 and level 4. Level 3 had to do with how useful did this actually turn out to be in the work of those who got the training. And level 4 was how profitable did it actually turn out to be for the company to have paid for that training. And those 2 were not mandated. Well, by the way, I should mention that this was the first time that I actually sat down and truly read through the whole book. I had to read through the book to find out for sure all of the rules that I was being given. And that turned out to be an awful lot of fun. But the thing that astounded me is how quickly I was able to read through the book. And I did not find that I needed to make a large number of additional bib notes because the actual steps in analytically reading the book had already gleaned out of that book the majority of what I could validly and happily learn from the book. One chapter I did not attempt to nail down in terms of propositions, and that was the additional chapter 8 on how to use the format system to improve your delivery. And the reason I didn't pick any propositions out of that chapter is that they were all suggestion lists. Try this and this or this or this or this or this. There were just long lists of things that you could try. So I expect to use that as a reference, but I have not yet made any notes from it. So that's a rather interesting one. It's not represented in my bib cards other than that it was identified in the chapter structure. So that's one area that I do intend to read with a bib card in hand, but not for propositions, not when you say, well, you could try one of these 8 different things, and then page after page after page of lists of multiple things you could try. Didn't feel like a rule to me. Well, as I noted earlier, we are getting close to the end of this entire process. Okay, join me next time when we continue with Mortimer Adler's How to Read a Book, our extended analytic example, and we are getting close to the end of this series. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.